He thought it was just a sit-down chat, not a public roast. Alistair Byrne had stood through mortar fire, battlefield evacuations, and more drunk tourists than he could count. He kept his composure while the world burned around him, but nothing quite prepared him for a Tuesday morning talk show with too many lights, too many fake grins, and one host who mistook sarcasm for charm. She leaned in, voice honeyed with mockery. "So tell us, do you actually do anything?" she laughed. "Or just stand around looking fancy in a fuzzy hat?" The crowd chuckled. He didn't. That moment right there was when something shifted. The smile behind his eyes faded, and the people in the room had no idea what was coming. But let's rewind. Alistair had landed at JFK in the dull hush before dawn, still in his pressed civilian suit and polished shoes, the weight of a garment bag slung over his shoulder. The palace PR lady had chirped at him somewhere over the Atlantic, "Be relatable. Americans love a bit of charm. Show them you're human." As if dragging wounded comrades through gunfire hadn't already proven that. Outside the studio, Manhattan buzzed like a live wire. Taxis screamed. Steam rose from manholes. A homeless vet sat near a hydrant, holding a cardboard sign that simply read Afghanistan, 2009 to 2012. Alistair slipped a 20 from his pocket, dropped it into the man's cup without breaking stride. The vet looked up, their eyes locked just for a second. No salute, no words, just a quiet understanding, the kind only brothers in arms ever really know. The studio's side entrance reeked of hairspray and burnt coffee. A production assistant, all clipboard and caffeine, barely glanced up. "Byrne, yes," he said. She scanned his charcoal suit like it disappointed her. "They said you might show up in full regalia. That would have looked better on camera." He offered a polite nod. "You're taller than I thought," she added. "Less robotic." "Thank you." She hit the elevator button. "You're segment 3 after Broadway. Before climate change. Keep it light. If someone jokes about the hat, smile. Maybe do that statue thing." The elevator hummed upward under flickering fluorescent lights, painting everything in that weird TV yellow glow. Alistair felt his jaw tighten. 23 years of service reduced to a gimmick and a fuzzy hat. She glanced over again. "Just so you know, Joy's in one of her moods. Her coffee was wrong. So, watch your back." He nodded again, mentally filing it away. In his experience, people who lashed out over coffee usually had more than cream and sugar on their minds. The green room was just as fake happy as he'd expected. Too bright, too forced. Craft services looked ransacked. A Broadway actress paced through her monologue. A scientist flipped note cards like she was trying to memorize the weather. No one looked relaxed. Everyone was performing even when no one was watching. Alistair chose a corner chair and sat like he always had, back straight, feet flat, eyes forward. Even out of uniform, the posture never left. The idea that someone was always watching, always ready to judge, was carved into his bones. A makeup artist approached, friendly but efficient. "Just a little powder to kill the shine." He didn't flinch. "You really do that thing. Stand still forever." He thought for a second. "Stillness," he said, "is sometimes the only way to stay alive." She blinked, deep, then moved on. Outside the green room window, the city moved like it was late for something. Traffic jammed, trucks double parked, people dashed, eyes glued to phones. It was chaos, beautiful, restless chaos. It made him miss the precision of his world, a place where every movement had weight, where every step mattered. 20 minutes to air, a weary young producer bounced over. "All right, quick rundown," he said, glancing at his phone. "We'll talk about the uniform, the training, maybe a hat joke or two. Keep it light. People love this stuff." Alistair gave a practiced nod. "Joe might push a little," the producer added. "She's known for poking. Don't take it personally." That sentence triggered a quiet alarm in his gut. In the military, "don't take it personally" usually came before something very personal. Down the hallway, the live shows energy was electric-controlled chaos. Crew members darted by, screens flickered, voices barked in earpieces. Through a cracked door in the control room, Alistair heard a voice. "Just keep it playful. Ask about the uniform. Joe wants to push him a bit." Another voice chimed in. "See if we can crack the mask." Talk about whether it's all just theater. You know how stiff those guys are. So much honor, so much tradition, easy to poke holes in. He stopped walking, took a breath, then kept going. But now he knew. This wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. He thought of the uniform in his bag, crimson red, polished brass, and that jeweled cap. Part of him wished he'd worn it not for the cameras, but as armor, a reminder. But no. They wanted to see the man behind the soldier. Fine. He'd show them. Every part. The studio doors opened, and the lights hit him like shrapnel. Too bright, too loud, too fake. But he walked across the stage like he always had, measured, calm, precise. In the crowd, an older man wore a faded veteran's pin. 2 rows back, a woman dabbed tears from her eyes. Not everyone had come for the spectacle. And now, the host beamed, the man behind the uniform you've all seen online. Please welcome Staff Sergeant Alistair Byrne. He moved with grace, not for applause, but out of instinct. He didn't wave, didn't grin, just moved. The way soldiers move, like every step has weight. You look so official even out of uniform, a host joked. Thank you for having me, he said, voice steady, accent quiet but clear. Okay. We have to ask, another said. That hat, you know the one, how heavy is it? About 1.5 pounds, he replied. Feels like 20 when the sun's out. Laughter. A few claps. What about bathroom breaks? Scheduled. Ever want to scratch your nose every shift? More laughs. He allowed himself a small smile. Maybe this wouldn't be as bad as it had seemed, but Joy hadn't spoken yet. Asterisk, that's when it shifted. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, arms folded, lips curled into that smirking little twist of someone who thought they were about to score points on national television. Her tone turned syrupy and sharp all at once. So you just stand around royal castles, wearing a costume, pretending to matter. The air inside the studio turned ice cold, the laughter from earlier gone. Hosts fidgeted in their seats. Someone in the audience cleared their throat in a way that screamed, this just got awkward. Alistair turned his head, not fast, not defensive, just slow enough to make it clear. He'd heard every single word. His face didn't flinch, but something in his eyes changed, like a steel door quietly sliding into place. I don't pretend, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Joy's grin widened. She thought she'd struck gold. Oh, lighten up, she said. It's just ceremonial stuff. Right. The hat, the marching, the stiff posture. It's like historical cosplay. That word landed like a slap. The room tensed. One co-host's hand tightened around her coffee mug like it might help her disappear. A few people in the audience looked away. One older man in the 3rd row shook his head slowly. Alistair didn't blink. Cosplay is when you dress up to become someone you're not, he said. I wear the uniform to honor those who can no longer stand in it. Just like that, the laughter died completely. Joy hesitated, but only for a second. His calm irritated her. His poise, his refusal to break seemed to make her itch. Okay, she said, waving her hand. The noble soldier speech. We've all heard it, but let's talk reality. You stand still while tourists take selfies. That's your job. You're basically a decorative statue with a paycheck. The jab landed hard. Even the camera crew stopped adjusting equipment. Everyone could feel it now. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was something else. Jill pressed on. In a world where people can't afford groceries, can't get medicine, can't pay rent, you're worried about looking good in a fuzzy hat. Alistair watched her closely now, not with anger, with understanding. He'd seen this before in other forms, people testing limits, poking until something snapped. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me, he said, his voice still measured. What do you do? Joy blinked. What, your job? What exactly do you contribute? I'm a journalist, a television host. Ask questions. I hold people accountable. Alistair gave the slightest nod. And who holds you accountable? The room went quiet again. You could hear the tension pulsing beneath the silence. Joy's mouth opened, then closed. Nothing came out. He didn't stop. When you reduce someone's life to a punchline, when you mock what you don't understand, who decides if that's okay? Who reviews your conduct? Joy cleared her throat. The audience, she said. A bit too quickly. The audience that claps because a sign tells them to? Alistair asked, nodding toward the crowd. That audience. A co-host shifted in her chair. Maybe. We should know, Joy snapped, heat rising in her voice. This is my job. Have questions. If he can't handle them, he shouldn't be here. Alistair didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I've handled things, he said. Things you can't imagine. I've held brothers while they bled out. I've walked across fields that could explode under my feet. I've stood still while bombs landed close enough to feel the heat. His tone didn't change, but it hit like thunder. The whole studio froze. Even the laughter sign guy looked stunned. So if I can sit here and be mocked on live television, he said, trust me, I can handle this. Joy opened her mouth, ready to retort. You talk about struggle, Alistair went on, but I've seen it up close. I've buried friends. I've watched lives torn apart because of politics. People play from leather chairs and studio desks. So no, my uniform isn't a costume. It's a memorial. It's a promise. It's service. Something you might not understand. She leaned forward, jaw tight. Service, she snapped. Is that what you call it, standing around while people starve and the planet burns? Alistair didn't blink. And you, sitting in a chair, turning pain into ratings. Feeding people outrage and calling it truth. Which one of us is helping the world? Joy stiffened. That one struck home, deep. You think you're better than me, she spat. He looked at her, really looked. Not with judgment, not with hate, just clarity. You know the difference between us, Ms. Behar, he said, gently. Now, when I wear the uniform, I disappear. I become something bigger. A symbol, a tradition. A shield for people I'll never meet. He paused, letting the words settle. When you sit in that chair, you make it all about you. Your opinions, your reactions, your name in the credits. He sat back slightly. I stand in silence so others can think. You fill silence with noise so they forget how. Joy's lips parted. But no sound came out. For the first time, she seemed genuinely speechless. Then, like flipping a switch, she went bitter. Peace, she said, with a laugh that had no warmth. You want to talk about peace? Tell us about all the peace your military brought to Afghanistan. The cameras had barely started rolling when the tone shifted. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Just another morning show segment, light banter, a few rehearsed questions, a bit of patriotic fluff before cutting to commercials. That's what mattered. Joy Behar expected, but what she got was something else entirely. Alistair sat calmly in his chair, back straight, uniform crisp, eyes forward, not stiff, but solid, like a man who had seen storms and learned to stay still in the center of them. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't even trying to impress. That's what made people lean in. So, tell me, Behar began, voice dripping with charm and teeth. What exactly do you do as a royal guard? Just stand there and look pretty? The studio chuckled. She smiled wider, waiting for him to flinch, but Alistair didn't blink. Instead, he offered a small nod. I suppose standing still is part of it, he said, evenly. But it takes discipline to be a statue in a world that demands reaction. You learn to stand firm when others run, to stay silent when noise is easier. The mood shifted. Behar leaned in. Oh please, she scoffed. You're not actually comparing guarding a palace to real war, are you? You're a glorified tourist attraction in a funny hat. That's when something flickered behind Alistair's eyes. Not anger, something deeper. A scar, maybe, that hadn't quite faded. I've buried friends in silence, he said softly. Held flags over caskets while their mothers screamed. I've stood in downpours for hours, not blinking, while strangers laid flowers for people they never met but owed everything to. Maybe it looks like standing still, but standing still is sometimes all we can do for the fallen. You could hear the air leave the room. Behar tried to laugh it off, reaching for another dig. So, you're proud of war now? You think uniforms make people noble? No, Alistair said, steady. I'm not proud of war. No soldier I've ever respected is. But I'm proud of the ones who stand anyway, who show up when it's unclear, when it's thankless, not for glory, not for cameras, just because someone has to. He paused. The uniform doesn't make me better than anyone, but it means I've earned the right to speak about service, about sacrifice, about putting something ahead of yourself. Can you say the same?" Now her smile vanished. "How dare you question my patriotism?" "I'm not," he replied. "I'm questioning your character." And then silence, the kind that hums in your bones. The co-hosts shuffled their cue cards nervously. Someone in the control room probably yelled to cut to commercial, but nobody moved. "You think you're better than me?" Behar spat. "Because you wear medals." Alistair stood, slow, measured. "No," he said. "I think there's a difference between serving others and serving your ego." He unclipped his mic. The audience barely breathed. "You don't get to walk away," she barked. "We're not done." He turned, eyes meeting hers, voice soft but heavier than steel. "Yes, we are." He looked to the other hosts. "Thank you for having me. I hope one day your show lifts people up instead of tearing them down." He set the mic on the table and walked toward the edge of the stage. "Coward," Mara shouted, her voice cracking. He stopped. The word floated in the air. Foul and sour. He turned, and for the first time, the soldier showed in his face not rage, but something colder, sharper. That look people get when they've measured the weight of a life in a single second and decided who walks away. "I've been called many things," he said, low and level. "By men dying beside me, by enemies aiming to end me, by widows in tears, but never, not once, by someone who knew me. Has anyone used that word?" He stepped closer. "The fact that you think walking away from a bully is cowardice tells me everything I need to know about what courage means to you." And then he turned and walked off the set. No music. No exit cue. Just silence, broken only by the echo of his boots on the studio floor. At first, no one clapped. No one moved. Even the blinking cameras seemed confused. Then, a single pair of weathered hands began to applaud an elderly man in the third row, back straight, eyes full. One by one, the others joined, a woman wiping her eyes, a young man in uniform, a father with his son on his knee. The standing ovation wasn't for television. It wasn't for a soundbite. It was for something real, something rare. But what lingered in that studio wasn't just silence, it was respect. Genuine, stunned respect for a man who had just shown the world what dignity looked like under fire. Joy Behar didn't speak. She couldn't. Her cheeks were flushed, her hands trembling slightly on the table as she stared at the space where Alistair had just stood. For the first time in her long, razor-sharp career, she had no comeback, no smirk, no quip that could entangle what had just happened. She had picked the wrong men to poke. And everyone in that studio knew it. The cameras didn't stop rolling. They caught it all, her unraveling, the silence, the applause, the slow, steady walk of a man who hadn't flinched once. Alistair Burns stepped out of that building with his head held high and his honor intact. The New York morning didn't care. Taxis honked. Pedestrians flowed past like water. Steam curled from a nearby manhole. The world moved on as if nothing had happened. But something had. He came out the side exit, adjusting his cuffs out of habit. The garment bag slung over his shoulder still held his ceremonial uniform. He hadn't needed it. He'd worn his legacy on his face, in his posture, in every measured word he'd spoken. The uniform was a symbol, but the man was the message. The homeless veteran was still there. Same spot, same fire hydrant. But now he was watching, waiting. "Brother," the man said, rising unsteadily to his feet. "I saw what happened in there. On my phone." He held up a cracked screen, streaming the segment. "That was beautiful, man. Just beautiful." Alistair paused, taking a real look at him. Early 40s, maybe. Eyes too sharp for someone who'd fallen this far. A face worn by weather and war. "What unit?" Alistair asked quietly. 10th Mountain. 3 tours." Alistair nodded. "Household division. 2 in Afghanistan, 1 Iraq." For a beat, they stood in silence. Just as soldiers in a civilian world that didn't always understand the weight they carried. "That woman," the vet muttered, shaking his head. She had no idea who she was messing with. "She was doing her job," Alistair replied, though even he didn't sound convinced. "No, Nan, that wasn't journalism. That was blood sport. But you handled it. Didn't take the bait." You made her look small without ever raising your voice. A security guard approached from the building, same one who'd watched from inside. Mid-50s, ex-military by the look of him. "Sir," he said respectfully, "I hope you don't mind, but I just wanted to thank you. What you said in there about service and standing up, it meant something. Navy, 22 years. My son's Army, currently deployed." Alistair shook the offered hand. "Your son's lucky. He's got someone who understands." The guard glanced at his phone. "You'll want to see this. It's already online. Going viral." Alistair winced slightly. Fame was never the goal, but once something hits the internet, it's out of your hands. A few yards away, a woman stepped toward them, middle-aged, nervous, like she didn't usually talk to strangers but this moment demanded it. "Excuse me," she asked, voice trembling. "Are you the soldier from the show?" He nodded. "My husband, he was Army too, died in Kandahar 5 years ago. And what you said about standing for those who can't anymore." Her voice cracked. She couldn't finish. "What was his name?" Alistair asked gently. "Michael. Sergeant Michael Torres." Alistair straightened, then saluted. It wasn't just for Torres, it was for her. For every widow, every empty chair at the dinner table. A salute full of weight and reverence. Her tears flowed freely, but she was smiling through them now. Others were beginning to gather, phones up. Whispers of recognition. Alistair turned back to the veteran. "What's your name?" "Rodriguez. Danny Rodriguez." Alistair pulled a card from his wallet, scribbled something on the back. "There's a veterans group in Queens. Good people. Tell them I sent you." Rodriguez stared at the card. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. We take care of our own." He started walking, but Rodriguez called out, "Hey, what you said about standing in silence so others can find peace, that hit me here." He tapped his chest. "Reminded me why I served." Alistair nodded and kept walking. His pace was calm, measured. Behind him, the crowd was growing. Phones were recording, sharing, reacting. But he didn't look back. His mission was complete. He hadn't given them spectacle. He gave them something rarer. Integrity. In the distance, a church bell chimed. Somewhere in London, his fellow guards were taking their posts. Rain or shine, they stood without complaint. Not for fame, not for applause, but for the belief that some things, dignity, service, tradition, were still worth protecting. Alistair Burns faded into the crowd, just another man in a gray suit. But every step he took carried centuries of honor. And though he didn't speak, he left behind an echo reminder that silence, when worn like armor, can sometimes thunder louder than rage, because there comes a time when even silence must speak. And when it does, it moves mountains. So what do you think? Did Joy Behar cross the line, or was she just doing her job? Should Alistair have stayed and fought back with words, or did walking away say everything that needed saying? What would you have done in that chair? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. If this story moved you, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more powerful Royal Guard moments just like this. Tap the bell icon so you never miss our daily uploads. And share this with someone who still believes that dignity matters even when the world forgets. Check out more Royal Guard stories on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow with another moment that proves some traditions are still worth standing for.